Telkom says it's awaiting further clarity into the nature of a special investigating unit probe. President Cyril Ramaphosa yesterday authorized the SIU to probe financial losses suffered at the company's Mauritius and Nigeria operations dating back to 2006. It's claimed that serious maladministration and improper conduct may have taken place by employees at the telecommunications giant. Government holds a 40% stake in the mobile and fixed line operator. The Transparency International's 2021 Corruption Perceptions Index reveals that South Africa has reached a standstill for the past decade in its efforts to curb graft. Now, the country ranks 70th out of 180 for public sector corruption, with zero signaling extremely corrupt. Joining us to unpack this report further is legal researcher Mashudu Masutha. Mashudu, good evening and thanks for your time. Firstly, let's talk about what this CPI is and why a country's ranking on this particular index matters.
Hi, Kathy, and thank you so much for having me. So the CPI index scores and ranks countries based on its level of corruption, and it is an expert analysis on public sector corruption. And the CPI is usually the first point of reference when trying to establish corruption levels in other countries. So the results are most likely going to influence international perception of corruption in any country. And as you mentioned, it's a scale from 0 to 100, 0 being highly corrupt jurisdictions and 100 being very clean jurisdictions. So this report is quite a special one because you are able to track countries and how they've performed over the last decade, and that's where you find that South Africa has unfortunately remained at concerning levels of corruption on the index for the past 10 years.
When we talk about the look then and the review on corruption, is it public sector corruption or does it include the private sector as well?
So this index looks at public sector corruption. So it's the expert analysis of public sector corruption. So it is not the public's perception of what corruption is. And in that analysis, a wide range of things are looked at. Things like public officials using public resources for private gain, bribery, diversion of public funds, even looking at legal policy of the protection of whistleblowers, looking at criminal prosecutions. So the aspect of private sector corruption, only where it interfaces with public sector or public resources will it then be analyzed as part of the CPI index.
So according to this index, South Africa is practically at a standstill when it comes to its fight against corruption. What are some of the markers of this that would have contributed to this position?
So, you know, it really is such an interesting finding, but I think all of us can agree that it's not really surprising that over the last 10 years we've remained at this concerning level. And some of these indicators are anything from public officials that have been found to be complicit in corrupt conduct but not been held accountable. Issues of not having adequate policy around whistleblower and the protection of whistleblowers. And I think one aspect that can really be used as a barometer to support the CPI index is some of the testimonies that have come from the Zondo Commission, where we've seen high levels of corruption by senior public officials at SOEs and so on. So those aspects and those revelations contribute greatly to the CPI findings.
Of course, there is also a finding there that points to the fact that while South Africa has put in place multiple initiatives to expose and to try and deal with corruption, often we fail in implementing some of those policies and measures?
Absolutely. I think, the one that is most relevant now as the country tries to move into this COVID recovery from an economic standpoint is the political declaration that South Africa has made at the UNGASS regarding transparency safeguards with public procurement. So this was a well-known declaration that was made. But in order for the country to make improvements on the CPI index, that commitment needs to translate into policy and executive decision-making processes. If that does not take place, then all it is lip service and unfortunately will remain at that concerning level on the index.
Also, one of the interesting things that it highlights when it comes to public spending, because that's really where, the bulk of the corruption takes place, is that if there is greater transparency and South Africans actually know how much money is being spent, what it is being spent on, then that could contribute to a positive change.
Absolutely, Kathy. And I think, just to reference one of the questions that you've earlier asked with regards to private sector, I think a big part of the procurement issue is not only the spending, but who exactly is providing the goods and services to the country. And that is really about beneficial ownership transparency. You need to know who is the owner of the company that is supposedly supposed to provide a particular service and provide some of or fill some of these socioeconomic needs of South Africa. So it's really a package that South Africa has not been able to manage in terms of policy and ensuring that there is transparency safeguards.
Legal researcher at Corruption Watch, Mashudu Masutha. Let's leave it there for tonight.